In the heart of southern Africa, nestled between Zambia and South Africa, lies a land once known as Rhodesia, a nation whose brief existence was marked by profound conflict, international isolation, and a struggle for identity. This is the story of the Republic of Rhodesia. Our journey begins in the late 19th century, when British imperialist Cecil Rhodes sought to expand the British Empire. He envisioned a territory that stretched from the Cape to Cairo. The land he acquired was named Rhodesia in his honor. By the 1920s, southern Rhodesia had become a self-governing British colony. But the seeds of its eventual secession were already sown, as the white minority sought to maintain control over the majority black population. The winds of change were blowing across Africa. Colonial empires were crumbling, and new nations were emerging. But in Rhodesia, the path to independence took a dramatic turn. On November 11, 1965, Prime Minister Ian Smith made a bold and defiant move. He declared Rhodesia independent from Britain. It was the first unilateral declaration of independence by a British colony since the United States in 1776.
I believe that there is some racial discrimination in Rhodesia which is desired by both our main races and is advantageous to both our main races. This is because of their different cultures, their different traditions, their different ways of life. And I believe that only a mischief maker would try to suggest that we eliminate that which is desirable to both the main races. On the other hand, there is a racial discrimination. We have conceded this. It is part of our history, which we have got to deal with. And I am referring to racial discrimination which offends against the dignity of people. Discrimination which infers that some people, because of their race or color, are superior to others, or that because of their race or color they are entitled to enjoy privileges which others are not likewise entitled to enjoy. This, I think you will agree with me, is unjust and therefore cannot be tolerated. And I would say to my fellow Rhodesians, in this regard, let us not be mealy-mouthed. This will mean that we have got to bring about certain changes in Rhodesia which are different from the previous way of life which has operated in our country. I would say that this should not alarm us. We live in a changing world. I wonder if there is any country in the world today which has not got to face up to changes. And I would remind you of one of the most fundamental laws of nature, namely that any animal which is unable to adapt itself to its changing environment perishes. And this, ladies and gentlemen, applies just as much to two-legged animals as it does to four-legged animals.
The world reacted swiftly. The United Nations condemned Rhodesia and imposed economic sanctions. The country was isolated, but the regime held firm, determined to maintain white minority rule. Inside Rhodesia, the situation was escalating. Black nationalist movements, primarily ZANU and ZAPU, began a guerrilla war against the government. The country was engulfed in a brutal and protracted conflict. As the war dragged on, Rhodesia sought ways to break its isolation. Internal settlements and attempts to create a biracial government were made, but these were often seen as half measures by the international community and the black majority. In 1979, Bishop Abel Mugabe became the prime minister of a newly named Zimbabwe-Rhodesia, but this did little to change the reality on the ground. In 1979, after years of war and international pressure, all parties agreed to negotiations in London. The Lancaster House Agreement was reached, paving the way for a transition to majority rule. In 1980, Rhodesia officially became Zimbabwe. Robert Mugabe, a key figure in the liberation movement, became the first prime minister of the new nation. The Republic of Rhodesia was no more. The legacy of Rhodesia is complex and controversial. For some, it represents a tragic chapter of racial oppression. For others, it's a tale of lost potential and defiance against the odds. The story of the Republic of Rhodesia is one of conflict, resilience, and profound change. It's a story that continues to echo through the history of Zimbabwe and the world. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you found this video compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into history's most intriguing tales.